The New York Liberty get an ugly win against the Atlanta Dream. Let's discuss it right here on the Light It Up Liberty podcast. Welcome back to the Light It Up Liberty podcast. I'm your host, D, and today we are discussing the New York Liberty's latest win against the Atlanta Dream. But before we dig into anything, be sure to hit that like button, be sure to subscribe, drop some comments below. Let me know your thoughts on this ugly win. But it was still a win for the New York Liberty. So this was the first game back for Courtney Vandersloot in the starting lineup. And we are seeing a little bit of not rust per se, but some symbiotics, the lineup together just needs to find their way, if that makes sense. She's been out the last couple of games. She hadn't start. She comes back into the starting lineup. It really takes the ball out of Sabrina Ionescu's hands. And so she wasn't as effective as usual because she's used to now being the primary ball handler. Vandersloot, though, was that primary ball handler for this game. It was a poor shooting performance from the New York Liberty, if we're going to be completely honest. This was one of those wins where even though the Liberty weren't the better team on the court for the majority of the game, they still get the win. That is what good teams do. You don't necessarily have to bring your A game to get a win. And that's what this team did. They fought, they scraped, they clawed, and they got the dub out from underneath a poor performance in the first half. So let's go ahead and just start to dig into it. Atlanta came out without Ryan Howard in this game, out due to injury. I believe it was her knee. And Atlanta came playing fast. They were fast. They had confidence. They were coming off of an upset win against Connecticut, one of course, the best teams in the league. So they're feeling really good about themselves. And they came out firing on all cylinders. They were looking good from the three-point line. One thing that the broadcast did mention that caught my eye a little bit beforehand. At first, when they were shooting the three-pointer, they were not going for offensive boards. They were moving straight back down the court, weren't even looking to see if the shot was hit, and the majority of them were hit. It was actually crazy to see their shooting percentages. Halfway through the second quarter, they pulled up the stats. The Dream were shooting 62%, while the Liberty were at 27%. So the offense was just stagnant for the New York Liberty. On the other hand, the Atlanta Dream, things were hitting, things were moving. They were feeling good about themselves. They were moving the ball. They were getting that extra pass in. And that's one thing that the New York Liberty just weren't doing. I know early on they were trying to get Jonquel Jones going. She ended up not having a great day overall. That is compounding from the last game where she didn't look good against the Minnesota Lynx. And offensively, they were only held to 13 points in that first quarter. That ties the season low for them. And guess who held them to that? The Atlanta Dream. They held them to that the first time. They held them to that this time. So, I mean, something happened where the new Atlanta Dream feel like, hey, we've got this New York team under wraps when it comes to matchups. We know what we are doing. Down the stretch, though, it just didn't really last. For the Dream, Allisha Gray had an awesome game. She ended up with 24 points. Tina Charles, the great Tina Charles, ended up with a double-double with 12 rebounds and 16 points. And one spark off the bench was Maya Caldwell. In her second game with the Atlanta Dream, comes off and provides valuable minutes. She was looking good both on the offensive end, but more importantly on the defensive end as well. She ends up with 8 points. And again, they were in control much of that first half, feeling really good about themselves. But the New York Liberty did what they can to stay within that striking distance. At the end of the half, Courtney Vandersloot hits a 3 to bring it down to a 5-point lead. And that's right within striking distance for this team. In that second half, the Liberty took the lid off the basket finally. They get the offense going. They go on a big run. Breanna Stewart is starting to find her three-point shot again, looking good. But Lainey Hamilton looked awesome at this game. She actually ended up with 18 points, 5 boards, and 6 assists. Breanna Stewart ended up with a double-double, 22 and 12 with 3 assists. Again, Jonquel Jones, not a great game on the offensive end. Only ended up with 5 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists. And this is just something that the New York Liberty are going to have to continue to work on moving forward. I know the Minnesota Lynx had great success in defending Jonquel Jones, and she is one of the big three for this New York Liberty team. If they are going to succeed and make a deep run as they did last year and hopefully throw off the aces, they are going to need her to step her game up offensively. Uh, Again, a bad game for Sabrina. Sabrina only ended up with 10 points, 4 boards, and 4 assists. She was held scoreless in that first half. For some reason, the Dream just match up well with what this New York Liberty team does, and they are able to hold them defensively. But again, it just too much for this New York Liberty team. They find a way to get scoring on the board. And in the second half, they kept the Atlanta Dream at bay. Once they went on that run and the second quarter into the start of the third quarter, they never looked back. At one point, the Atlanta Dream brought it back down to a 3-point game, but then the New York Liberty end up just kind of taking it over from there. The game ended up being an 81-75 win for the New York Liberty. And again, that is what good teams do. They win despite not having to throw out their A game. They will go back to the drawing board. They will figure out, hey, what are we doing here with Jonquel Jones? How can we get Sabrina going a little bit sooner? Because there was a little bit of disconjointment between what the offense was doing and what Sabrina does best. And they even had her sit out at the end of the first half to, hey, take a breather. Let's gather yourself. Let's figure out what we're doing here. She ended up getting 10 points in that second half, but man, what an ugly, ugly offensive game in that first half. But you get the win. If everything feels better with the win, so you figure it out, you move forward. Today, they are actually going to be playing the Minnesota Lynx again. So that's going to be a fun game. Hey, we just lost to them in the Commissioner Cups championship. Can we come back and get a win for pride's sake? So be on the lookout for that. Be sure to hit that like button. Be sure to subscribe. Drop some comments below. Let me know your thoughts. Light it up, Liberty.